Hello, Perceptionists.
Welcome to Perceptionists Anonymous.
I'm Emily.
I'm Christiane. Hi, guys.
Hello, and today we are talking about soul contracts.
Yeah, man. What a topic. You know what, when we decided we were going to talk about this, like, we had these couple of competing ideas, and soul contracts are different than sacred contracts, and that's another episode.
Yes, they are. Christy originally said sacred contracts, and I was like, oh, like soul contracts. And she was like, no. And I was like, no. Okay. And then looking into sacred contracts, we were like, whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information that's like very intense. And soul contracts are something that's a little bit different. And I feel like I talk about soul contracts like a lot, especially during readings. Because there's something really prominent that we don't actually typically acknowledge often about ourselves, and they can show up in a ton of different ways. So I don't know, I'm excited to talk about it because I feel like it's something more people should have knowledge of. That's core.
Well, so upon my research of it, I didn't think I guess I so easily and so readily overlooked it because I didn't think of the ideas, like all the different ways that it can manifest and all the different ways that it can like apply to our life. And I was like, wow, okay. And I know that a lot of it, I mean, it's kind of theoretical, but at this point, like, we're just diving in some theoretics for the best part of our life. And I guess that's all that being fucking human is swimming through theory, you know? I'm gonna do this joke.
You could do the joke.
All right, guys.
A great joke, and let's bring it on.
So we like always try and find a joke that's like relevant, and we did our best. This is as good as we got.
We try to do a joke that's relevant, and then that being said, sometimes I talk about suffocating grapes. So we're just gonna.
We're like, I don't know. So shout out to Generation Z with all your silly ass half words. We don't know what this shit means, but it says simps. The soul of a girl is the best part. And then the people with foot fetish say, finally, something we can agree on. Finally. Like, oh my God, stop it.
That's enough soul jokes, and that's what happens.
I know. I was like, soul contracts, all right. And I was like, oh, this is different.
Yeah. At first I looked up jokes about contracts, and it was just a bunch of jokes about getting STDs, and I was like, God.
Oh my God. You're like, all right, foot fetish like, it is.
Right. I'm like, not talking about contracting STDs, talking about contracts, but here we are.
Soul STD, is that what? That's weird. No, there's a joke in there somewhere about the letters STD and soul. We'll figure that shit out later.
Oh my God, there's jokes all over it. It's just contracted jokes.
Aw,
one of them was like, I spent $10 on a hooker and she gave me crabs, and then I went back to her to complain about it, and she's like, what did you expect for $10? Lobsters? And I was like, what the fuck?
Oh my God, that's funny. I like that. Ew, what the fuck? That's gross. I'm way too visual.
No hate to sex workers. It was just a funny joke.
It's just funny. So, dude, all right, soul contracts. So where do you want to start?
Well, oftentimes, so for me, I don't know, I've done so much work with soul contracts kind of at the core of it, because when I really got into channeling and block removal and limiting belief removal and stuff, and really started working with like, okay, what exactly does the universe look like outside of ourselves? And you know, before we come here, what the fuck do we do? Like, how do we decide what our life is going to look like? Because everything I've ever channeled lines up with the fact that we pretty much decide some key points of our life before coming in, and we decide who we're going to work with about these key points, etc., before coming in. And that's where soul contracts kind of comes in for me, with a lot of the experience I have with it on a very personal level. There are ways that soul contracts are really awesome, and then there are ways where sometimes we don't shed them in the way we should, and so we carry in past life soul contracts that sometimes are not great for us. They're sometimes really, really bad for us, based on other things, etc. So there's a whole bunch of different components that go into it, but like you said, they're really easy for people to overlook when they do research on things, or when they're learning about, like, they're very easy to just kind of bypass, when really they're super important.
Well, I think that a lot of the time people immediately think of or I know that for myself, I immediately thought of, okay, like this, so the soulmate twin flame thing, and that's something that we've talked about in other episodes, you know, but it's like, and also think about I know that in Hindu philosophy, they say that we come into the world with, like, we pick our parents, we pick our names, we pick, like, all these things, like, and I don't know to an extent, like, how that works, man. I'm sure that there is some sort of, like if, because what we're going to go into in this episode is how our names are actually a contract as well. And names, once again, tie into numerology and, like, what that means, and, like, how with this, some of this is predetermined. And then some people don't believe in free will at all, and I would absolutely not go as far as that, but I do think that there's sort of these, like, cogs that we're working on as a people, and, like, there's no way that we could know all of them, and we don't even need to know all of them. That's not our freaking role. Our role is to develop as people and to, like, become better people, but being armed with some of this knowledge can really help us.
Yeah, and to touch on just the free will piece with that, because I have sometimes people they're like, oh, so we decide what we're going to do in life before we get here, so we have no free will. And it's like, no, that's kind of the opposite of what I'm saying. I'm saying you used your free will before you arrived on planet to make educated decisions about your life, as opposed to just bumbling, amnesia-filled decisions that you could be making here. So if anything, it's allowing yourself to trust in your free will even more, because your higher self kind of helped you. And so when you're making these choices, you can have some kind of, I don't know, love with them and comfort with them, because you're just actually, knowing that you have made these choices for a purpose a lot of the time. And there's different ways to think about it, of course, and it's a person by person basis. So I'm not blanketing this, but that is, in a way, if everyone's like, oh, so we have no free will, everything's just, we're supposed to do these things. It's like, no, you decided to, like, you and your free will did decide to do these things. So I don't know, at the core, when you just brought that up, I was like, oh, that's a very good point. I should probably bring that up too.
So, and that's interesting. And I guess part, like, my initial reaction is skeptical in the way that's like, okay, but, like, how, I guess some people just have better memories than others about coming into this life. And then, like, people like me, we just tend to recognize where these things happen. Like, not necessarily coming in and being like, I decided some sad shit's going to happen in this life. It's more like, well, in retrospect, we're able to put together the sad shit, and we're able to recognize, like, what role these things played, what role these people played, And once again, that could be humans, like, in retrospect, everything's hindsight, everything's 2020, because everything already happened, we can find the roles.
Well, when you're a human, you have to look at hindsight to reconcile. But before you come into being a human, it's looking ahead to know exactly where you're going. And I don't think people necessarily come in with, like, remembering all of this. I just think it's over time, people have channeled it and figured it out and worked through it and that kind of thing. And the point is to have amnesia. The point is to not remember it, so that you can actually experience it. Because if you did remember it, why would you need the experience?
Right? Like, you wouldn't be invested in the game. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like, you'd be like, I know what the fuck is going to happen. Spoiler alert. Like,
meanwhile, we're like, I haven't eaten in 12 hours. Like, I have this body to maintain and shit. My mouth's too small. And I don't know. You guys, before we did this episode, we were talking about, apparently, like, Emily, explain the mouth thing just so that this is a PSA.
It's a PSA. It's actually really fascinating, and I highly recommend everyone does this. So I went to the dentist with all 3 of my children on Monday. So basically, I was at the dentist for like 4 fucking hours. So me and the dentist had a lot of conversations. And basically, what he was telling me is, the millennial generation is the first generation where we can study the impact of feeding our children when they're babies only soft foods, and feeding them formula and feeding them all these different things, right? Where we have like basically blended to mush foods. We were basically the first generation that had only that. Some of the older generations had like a little bit of that. It was getting introduced, in like the 60s, 70s, it was kind of becoming a thing. And then we're the generation where we really had it as a thing. So Gen X and us. And so now that we're all adults, we're starting to see the actual impact that had on the development of our physical mouths. And our mouth shape has developed incorrectly at its core. So our mouths are much smaller than they should have been, because as babies, we didn't strengthen our jaws and expand our mouths by chewing actual food. We had mush. And so it's results in basically our brains not getting enough oxygen, specifically when we sleep, because our mouths are so crammed. We're not getting enough oxygen coming into our brain, which is part of the reason that the ADHD and ADD and neurodivergent kind of pandemic has occurred, and why kids has suffered at a much higher rate with bedwetting. It could also be attributed to mental health stuff. There's a whole book on it. I believe it's called Breathe or Breath. It has like this yellow cover, and he was like, read this. And so it's in my Amazon card. I'm going to buy it and read it, because my kids obviously are having kind of some of those issues. And it's really, really fascinating, because even me as an adult, I was like, okay, yeah, well, what about my mouth? He's like, your mouth is too small. you grind your teeth at night, right? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, well, it's because you're not getting enough air to your brain and you never have, so you grind your teeth. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, really? So that, like, when Christy's like, yeah, my mouth's too small, it is. Like, our mouths are often, they didn't develop correctly when we were kids, and now they're just figuring that out. And so with kids now, especially in pediatric dental, what he was saying is they're screening these kids really young, because orthodontics has now become way less about aesthetics and more about, let's make your mouth the correct actual shape it's supposed to be so you can breathe and get the air to your brain that you're supposed to be getting, which was just fucking mind-blowing to me.
It is. Yeah,
and
that's incredible.
Yeah, and it explains so many of like the problems my kids have and things like that, because they are struggling with some of those things. And like my son has my mouth for sure because it's way too many teeth for the actual size of it, and my daughter is like grinds her teeth really bad and has other issues. And he's like, yeah, they both need to be like really screened for this, and we need to figure out if we need to expand their mouths, which is just really cool. I'm like excited that there's a thing.
It's God, everything is so crazy right now. It's hard. And then, like, at least for myself, I think about all these different advancements. It's like, okay, so what is a symptom of something that's been wrong that is a symptom of something that we corrected?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we corrected something and we created a whole other fucking problem.
Right.
And
which was probably like babies choking to death on harder food.
Right.
Make it super smishy. And then now it's like, but now there's a whole generation of kids that had to take Ritalin when they were younger, and because they had ADHD, because they didn't have enough oxygen to their brain as they slept.
Well, and we're not being taught how to breathe. I mean, that's something, and we don't even know that we don't know how to breathe. Like, I barely breathe, dude, and I know that. Like, I have to consciously do it. Like, we breathe from the top of our chest, and like, as, I know this is shitty, but like, as you're talking about this mouth thing, it reminds me of the lady on YouTube where she's like, if the men find out we can shapeshift, they're gonna tell the church. She's like, make your nostrils small. Nobody likes nostrils. Mouth even smaller. You know, it's like, that we can joke about it. In reality, it's like, no one likes a mouthy woman. I don't know. Just kidding.
Yeah, but anyway, it's really interesting.
That's
like,
extremely interesting.
Like, even looking around, he's like, you've gone into your kid's school, right, and looked at all the kids, and I was like, yeah. He's like, are there some of them that look really funky because the bottom part of their face is not as shaped as it usually is? And I was like, yeah, there is. Like, I didn't actually notice it, but I just like thought they were goofy looking kids. He's like, no, that's actually like a problem. Like, that's what's actually happening. I'm like, holy shit. Okay. Cool.
Wow. You know, the doctors, they were like, we discovered what? Wait, right. Are you sure? Did you triple check the science? They're like, oh yeah, we did. Oh, we know.
Did you make it for sure? Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that's the mouth thing.
Yeah,
which maybe we contracted to have small mouths to have ADHD based experience. I mean, who knows? Like, again, soul contracts can go really deep. So
yeah, it's true, dude. This lady, I came across this lady's website, and it's called awakeandalign.com. And like, sometimes I guess, not to say that I'm critical, but like you have to be wary about the things you read online. Like, some of it, like, people can just freaking put whatever they want down. However, I was really impressed with this lady's information. Like, so once again, after I stopped looking at sacred contracts, because that is a lot of stuff about archetypes and stuff. However, this says like, what are soul contracts and how do they work and what do they do? And there's so much that goes into it. And this lady was so kind so as to make a list of the different types of contracts that she is familiar with. And so, there's, oh my God, there's actually like even more. It says there's fulfilling family functions, fulfilling a role as a friend, subtle energy exchanges, the passing on of knowledge, synchronistic encounters, soul code exchanges, and things that provide healing. And then it says that there's 6 different types of soul contracts that affect you. Migratory contracts. Okay, so this is interesting. So this is about developing like your soul, your whatever, the essence of yourself is from one solar system, one planetary system, and that you have to have the codes, like the planetary soul codes, to be able to move on to this other, like you have to have family in this other soul system, or you have to have like these other, like whatever, there's has to be like already a visceral like interaction happening there for you to be able to go there, which is maybe part of the reason, like, think of humans here on Earth being this like great expansive experiment that we have all these different, like, 2,300 extraterrestrial lively soul codes being evolved on this planet here. So like, we are kind of a special case here. Planetary and sun contracts. And these are celestial bodies that are a continuation of our soul's evolution. That's interesting. You can and will at some point have the opportunity to create contracts with your soul family to become one of these beings, if that's the path you choose to go down to. I don't understand that part. Planetary sun, like turning into a sun or what? Galactic prime creators being on contracts, and this is like a higher level of consciousness. They choose to form, they can choose to form their own galaxy. I don't know, relationship karmic contracts, that's pretty common, animal contracts, and then experiential synchronistic contracts, which, I mean, I talk a lot about how that's like my primary utilization of information intuitively.
I will also say that sometimes you're contracted, I don't know, I know it's that there's some experiential ones, but I feel like sometimes you're contracted to not have an experience or to maintain a certain experience or that sort of thing, and you don't necessarily remember making the contract. This is a common one that I get. Let me just give an example. So oftentimes I'll tune in to do like energy work on someone, or we'll be doing a reading, and they'll be like, I don't know what it is, but like every time I try to connect, I just get nothing. Like I feel like I hit a blank wall. And I'll look above, and they'll have it'll look like a block between their third eye and their crown chakra, and it will be a contract to not directly connect to the divine from a past life that's left over, where they were in a really religious place and only the priest was allowed to directly connect. So you basically make a contract with your energy that you're not going to do that. So it's like your own energetic contract to please those around you,
to
to
survive,
prohibit your experience. Yeah. And now in this life, you don't need that. So then we dissolve the soul contract and release it, etc., which you probably have a soul contract to do in the first place. I believe everyone I ever work with, I had a soul contract with to end up meeting up with. I truly believe that from the very core of my being.
I do too.
And that's what it is. So you definitely planned on coming in and getting that removed. But that being said, like it was there, to survive or for protection or for whatever reason. And there can be a ton of them. Also leftover contracts with like darker energies, I guess is the best way to describe it. Darker, I don't want to use denser, probably lower vibration. I don't want to use the word darker, but like lower vibration.
Grand symphony of life,
Yeah, the lower vibrational entities that maybe in a past life really did serve you, but in this life you've just been haunted nonstop by it and you don't understand what it is. You can have that kind of contract as well. Some people have those. I've come across those very rarely. Usually you come in with a different kind of experience now that you're coming in, but sometimes those are left over. There's tons of different kind of soul contracts that you can have. Not to mention, then you have contracts to have the experiences you're going to have the purpose you're going to have. You have contracts between you and your spirit guides. People are often like, well, what do they get out of it? It's like, well, that doesn't really matter because you made a contract with them. So in your higher self version what they're getting out of it. They know what they're getting out of it. You don't fucking need to know now. Like you have a contract with them. It's a give and take. You've established this. So like you get to move forward with that and etc.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like, it's silly to think that there's not any I guess people do things completely out of the benefit of their own heart, or not the benefit, but like completely out of the goodness of their own heart. But in some ways, like everything good or bad does have this like consequence, man. And consequence is not a bad thing necessarily. It's just wisdom and the experience of thing. And I mean, some of us learn fucking harder than others. and this is a thing that you learn in a lot of mystery schools as well, is being able to consciously do these contracts as well. Like in some of the schools that I've gone to, or in the school that I gone to that I went to, that it talks about not only cutting cords, which is like very, it's one part of it, of like this vaster expanse, but like you can literally rewrite your contract to these other things. Like I was talking to a lady recently who was having this really, like, I think she was channeling actually, but she was having these really like uncomfortable experiences. And I said, okay, well, you need to be able to like you can write something down physically. And the physical manuscript of this is meant to remind yourself, or to like convince your mind that something is like set in stone, and you can rewrite the articles of your agreement with this thing. And I know that there's much more in-depth, I guess it depends on per person, per circumstance, like what it takes to be able to go into this situation. But these things can be changed, like you're talking about.
Yeah, that is true. They can be changed. They can be released. If you feel you've fulfilled a contract, you can move on with it. Like there's so many things to it. And it's just really interesting, like at its core, like it's such a bigger concept than we understand. And also it's important to note that when I say contract, it's not the way that we think of it in the human world as much. We think of like, oh, a contract protects both parties and does this, and it's all this legal jargon and that sort of thing. Soul contracts are more of energetic feelings and agreements. kind of at their core, if that makes more sense. It's not necessarily like, here's check out Article 6, paragraph 3 for the details of this, but it could be, but it's usually the energetics of it is different, if that makes sense. When I tune into it, it just looks very different.
Well, I think that for humans, it's really beneficial for us to feel like we can understand these things. And so for it to be translated into something that is more detailed, but that can also complicate things, I could see as well. So like, I guess it depends on who the person is and what they feel more comfortable with. I think that some people aren't comfortable with the idea of it being this like etherical thing, you know? And so it can be really helpful for us to be able to sit down and be like, I'm not, or even like talking to another person's spirit. Like in a lot of energy work that we do, when you go into someone else's field, you ask them, okay, may I enter your field? Am I able to work this with you? You know, and so you can, you ask the spirit or the divine core of whoever or whatever you're trying to work with, and then you can speak with them. And I know that it can be meant to make the person feel better that's doing it. You know, they're like saying like that they don't want to tell the other person that they're hurting their feelings, you know, right. and so it can be as detailed as needed, or it can be as like a nuanced as needed as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I found this really interesting. I know you found a soul contract calculator, and I found kind of like a breakdown of soul contract stuff that was really interesting. It looks like a 6-pointed star with like a big space in the middle, and the top point, did you see that too?
Well, yeah, no, I was listening to a lady talk about it earlier about the Merkaba Star David thing.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So it's basically a 6-pointed star, and each point corresponds to a different thing. And based on the letters of your name, it shows you like where your strengths are. It reminds me very much of like astrology, because there's like
the Enneagram,
different things. Yeah, and the Enneagram. But the different categories are like physical karma, physical talents, physical goals, spiritual karma, spiritual talents, spiritual goals, soul destiny, and dominant variation. So basically, how you variate on everything.
Cool.
Which is really interesting. So then, like the more symbols you basically have based off the letters in your name, and they break it down to true birth name, assumed birth name, common name since birth, and your optimized name, like what you want your name to be basically. And like where those different you can have, there's different symbols that correspond with all of the different things, and they place it in different things, and it's really, really fascinating. But there's just the fact that I like how people have tried to really make it an organized system of like discover your soul contracts and all of that sort of thing. I don't think it's quite that organized on a core level for me, but they do say that like the part of the reason of figuring these out is so that you can help figure out your children's soul contracts and help them in those, and your partner's soul contracts and help them
or complicate them,
or complicate them, or just trigger the fuck out of them really intensely, or
and you'll never know, dude. You can only blame people so far. We have good intentions, I think.
Right. Yeah, so it's just really interesting. There's so many different aspects to it, but like I thought that visual was pretty cool, like the way that they've tried to break it down kind of like astrology. I've never tried to make something like that for anything I've ever channeled, and I don't know, I think it's interesting that some people are like, oh, we can make this crazy thing that obviously you just channeled in, and we can go from there, and that in and of itself is just really fascinating. So.
Well, maybe not yet. I think that like it reminds me of the idea of dialectical behavioral therapy from Marsha Linehan. She was someone suffering from borderline personality disorder, and so she created a fucking treatment for borderline personality disorder from the inside. And I think that that's a lot of how it works, is being on the inside of something. You have all of like, albeit it's personal experience and it's personal interaction and personal perspective on things, but you're able to see things from a different perspective than just merely analyzing it, you know, as like a theoretical thing. And so I think that maybe another point in your life that is very well could be something that you do. I feel like I did it once with the Pythagorean theorem. When I was in elementary school, I was like 3 years ahead. And when I was in 6th grade, I was in 9th grade math. And then I like to joke that I was 3 years ahead before I was 3 years behind. But I was learning about the Pythagorean theorem, and I remember coming up with a whole different way to do it somehow. And our teacher was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I was like, look, and I think there was like 1 or 2 circumstances it didn't work, which is the reason I like dismissed it, you know. But I think that humans like systems, and it would be so very human of us to create a system for something that doesn't need a system.
Right? That's what I think it is. I'm like, why do we need a system to understand soul contracts?
Because it's cool, Emily. Okay.
You know, but like
projectors over here.
Like, it's interesting. It's very interesting. And of course, it's all based off of your different names, which again gives language back the power that I think language deserves, which I think is really cool. So
shout out to Thoth.
Right? Shout out to Thoth. Speaking of which, do you want to do your calculations of our stuff?
Yeah, totes. So, all right, let's see yours first. So,
Okay.
where are you? So, this website is called Astrology Future Eye, which is, I'm sure is spot on.
Which last name did you use for me, by the way?
Dexter.
Okay, you used
Dexter this time. Yeah. Do
Okay.
you want me to, I can change to Anderson if you want.
Well, I don't know. I was just wondering, do I need to use my true birth name, or do I
don't
need
know.
to use the name that I
Let's try it.
know?
All right, yeah, let's see what changes it.
Okay.
Emily.
Watch it be exactly the same.
Right. S-O-N, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my maiden name for anyone.
Calculate. All right. Do. No, that shit changes. Okay.
Interesting.
So.
Dexter feels like my actual name. I will give you that. Like when I finally take that on, I'm like, yes, it feels so good.
Interesting. That's cool.
Anderson feels weird. It's mostly because my dad, I don't know, it's a weird connection with my dad. My initials are my dad's name spelled backwards, and so it feels so connected to him and less about me. I don't know.
Okay. Where is, so I had all my stuff. Where is it up here? Okay, so it starts out with your compound name number. And so mine is 41, and yours is, I have all this stuff pulled so far apart. Why? So yours is 74, and so it doesn't really, I guess that describes the your destiny number, and so the expression number with which you are, or which describes who you are, or what you've become. And so your name and destiny number is 11, and it represents highly sensitive, spiritual, and secretive. And it's ruled by the moon.
Highly sensitive, spiritual. Yeah.
Yeah, ruled by the, well, maybe tuning into secrets.
That'd be interesting. Ruled by the moon?
Yep.
Fucking accurate. Okay.
It says, so the number 11, which is a master number, and 2, which stands for a single number, which are both ruled by the planet moon. Because this number is called a master number, it means that you have a double and special power, which we know. It represents high sensitivity, spiritual, and high imagination power. You may become intuitive and a psychic person. Because of the moon, you are very soft to others and blind to trust in them. And it results in you often running into treachery or hidden dangers from others. You may have a very secretive nature and people cannot understand you easily. The number 11 represents the lion muzzled. Interesting. Whoa. Okay. So
how does that represent contracts?
I don't know. That's just, well, oh, so how I had recognized this is that the idea of our name being a contract, like the name being what we sign our contract with. And so for me, coming into this world, like, I don't necessarily believe that we picked our name, but I believe that we picked our circumstance. We picked kind of like the etherical energies that we're going to be swimming through, the events that we're going to be working with, you know? And, you know, I mean, once again, that could be partially the skeptic in me being like, yeah, well, our parents decide this. However, we have this like unconscious relationship with our parents anyway. So like there's this like unspoken agreement with them. So that to me is the contract of this. And I just, you know me bringing numerology into the shit.
I mean, that's pretty interesting, though. No, I think that's a good point because there is, I didn't actually think about it, but you do sign your contract with your name. And so picking a name for the lifetime, that is a contractual agreement in and of itself for how you're going to experience, like what you're going to experience in the life, makes a lot of fucking sense, actually. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Well,
and also you can change that number makes sense also. So,
yeah, well, you have 3 other numbers here too. So like, and I guess I don't necessarily need to go into all of them. It says your soul urge number, this is interesting, is 5. So according to the vowels of your name, your soul urge is 5. The soul urge 5 is influenced by Mercury. So you have a strong inner
accurate.
It's crazy. So you have a strong inner desire for freedom in every aspect of your life. I think mine was Mercury too. So you have a deep curiosity. I'm reading yours, right? Okay. You have a deep curiosity to know, learn, and execute any work. The number tends to be adventurous with new and unusual things. You like change and are either young, or you're either at home or in your workplace. You prefer change. Your personality number is 6. So according to the consonants of your name, so like you have the vowels of your name and the consonants of your name. That's interesting. It's the inner dream number 6 is ruled by Venus. Therefore, you are personally influenced by this planet, which is highly responsible for your family and your career. You are capable to draw your image as a cosmic father or mother. You are capable to draw your image as a cosmic father or mother for those you love. Cool.
Yep.
Right on. That's interesting.
super fucking accurate is what it is.
What's mine? So, did it both say that we have the same destiny number? Is that what I'm seeing here? No, it's totally different. I just have a 5 somewhere else. So my name destiny number is 5, which it represents communicator, restless, and versatile. Fuck yeah. You have the traits of the planet Mercury, which move fast and a versatile nature in communication and multi-talents. These qualities give you the opportunity to become a good salesperson, actor, writer, media, and commercial post related to sales and communication. You are clever and can make a quick response and ideas for any problem. You'll have freedom, adventure, and work on high risk. I don't really believe in high risk, though. I'm not really into that. Some of the people with the number 5 are highly workaholic and restless, and due to this, they may suffer from nerve-related problems. Due to an analytical nature, you disappoint the persons nearby you. What the fuck? And it's also referred to as the Hierophant. Okay. My soul urge number is 3, and it's artistic, and being the leader of the group around me, not necessarily has to do with Jupiter. Charismatic, artistic, and cheerful. And then my dream number is 11, which is cooperative and pleasing personality. So yeah, I guess in summation, so what I'm going to do when we post this episode on our YouTube, on our Instagram, I'll go ahead and post this numerology chart because it starts out with the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then it has all the letters listed down. So you could actually make this yourself. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, and so you go all the way to 8, and then you start back at 1, and you keep listing the letters down this line, and then that'll give you your numbers, and you can use you add them all up, and then like in any other level of numerology, when you have like a double number, like 41, that's 5. If you have like 67, that's going to be 13. So you add the numbers together, unless it's a master number like 11, 22, 33, which you use both. You keep the 11 and it's a 2. You keep the 33 and it's a 6. So anyway, I just think that in terms of contractual agreement, that's really interesting. And people change their name for that reason, man. I mean, right. I changed my name. I mean, you changed your name. I mean, I've gone by different versions of my name, but you've changed your name. Other people have.
Yeah, I changed my name 3 times now. It's interesting too. I wonder what impact that has. Like both of my younger kids go by TJ goes by initials and Lee goes by her middle name. Her first middle name, she has 2.
Yeah.
So I wonder like what impact does that have?
Well, that's what I did with going by like Christy as opposed to Christiane, and I guess it has an impact. I mean, and it kind of depends on the person to resonate with it. Like you can see characteristics in a certain person, but like from the inside of that person, it's different.
Yeah. I really like my name. I think at the core of it, I like it much better now that it's Dexter. It feels way more me.
It's cute,
An interesting thing with that too, I was just thinking about, and I'm looking at again this soul contract chart thing that I was thinking about, and I'm like, I feel like it would be way easier to make this chart with just. Anyway, I have ideas of how to make a more interesting and easier chart to understand your soul contracts if that's what I was trying to do. But to understand your soul contracts kind of more at a core level, it can be helpful too. And I recommend listeners, if you're like, what do I have contracts with? There's a couple different ways that I think you can find them out that I think is a little bit easier. First, any one or thing you're pulled to incredibly strongly, you can dive into that. Like, why are you pulled to this thing? What is that teaching you? Any major lessons that you feel like you're learning right now, you're pretty much soul contracted to have the experiences to help you learn that lesson. So if you're struggling with that one, that's part of what's coming in. You're learning stuff based off of your contracts, and that's a huge one. Yeah, contracts aren't always just like, just try to release the idea of like you're contracted to find your ultimate soulmate or your ultimate twin flame or anything like that, because they go on such a more expansive level. And like most of the research, I had to like dig through stuff to find stuff
we're trained to want that, though. You know what I mean? Like it's like manipulation of the idea that we want to be loved. So it's
right. Yeah. Fucking Disney, why you do this shit? But really though, like there's that too. Also, another thing I just want to touch on really quick is karmatic bonds, because they're very similar.
Cool. Yeah.
And those are often they're the more rigid connections where shit's going to come in, they're going to fucking trigger you a whole bunch, or the experience is going to trigger you a whole bunch, and then you have to deal with your like leftover karma and leftover things from other life experiences.
And who are you when you're put under pressure?
Exactly. That's a lot of that stuff. It's still a contract though. Like karmatic bonds are still
karmatic. Shut up.
Karmatic.
Tomato.
Karmatic blonde.
Shut up. You're from Tahoe too, dude.
Karmatic blondes is what I finished.
I know. I was like, what? What the fuck is that? Are you trying to say something to me right now? Use your words.
Use your words. No, you want to.
I'm angry.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So you still have free choice with everything, in my opinion. And the part of this too goes on along the lines of people are oftentimes wondering, like, am I on the right path, or am I doing the right things, and that sort of thing. It's like reminding yourself that you're gonna get to the right path, and maybe you're on a detour, but you're going through experiences you need to follow that path, or whatever it is, like, and to just remind yourself of how divinely supported you are, even by yourself. Like, that's the other thing with soul contracts. Like, your higher self made these contracts, so like you're being supported by yourself, even though you're not understanding it all right off the bat.
Well, that was actually going to be my next point, is the idea of contracts with yourself. I mean, so we can rewrite these with ourselves. We can, and it's, I guess I don't really know what to say about that, because the idea of like the mechanics of shifting an agreement with yourself basically means like muscle memory. You know, like you're like, damn it, I did it again, but I told myself not to. It's like, well, you gotta learn to not do it then. You know, it's like that we have like, that's where the intersection between like our spiritual selves and our animalistic selves, like we are but a meat suit trying to figure out that it's more than a meat suit, you know?
And with it too, you can consciously make contracts with yourself in your day-to-day. Cool. One way of doing this, if you really struggle with self-betrayal, which, hello, I do. I do struggle with, not trusting myself, or self-betrayal, or, that sort of thing. Making a promise to yourself that you contractually keep every single day literally starts to change your entire feeling and direction around that. It helps so much. And it doesn't have to be something massive. Like, it can just be like, you're going to wash your face in the morning and at nighttime. But that's like a contract you make with yourself. It's an agreement you make with yourself, and you honor it, knowing that you're going to get an energetic return from it, which you are. You're going to get more trust in yourself because you've started to actually build trust back up in yourself, because you're able to keep one promise to yourself on a day-to-day basis, so you're not betraying yourself. That's a really, really powerful one. But there's other ways that you can actually make contracts with yourself for your own benefit to help you grow.
Well, shout out to AA. That's exactly what they talk about, is like one day at a time. You know, like you can't eat a cake, the whole cake at a time, dude. You have to have like, and this is something I've had to remind myself of every day, is you wake up and you're like, okay, just for today, what do I do? Just for today, I'm washing my face. Just for today, I am getting up at this time. You know what I mean? And like, and so it can become so cumbersome, so heavy for us to be able to try and like, damn it, well, I did this 4 days in a row. Yeah, well, then you're going to do it a 5th day in a row if you keep thinking about it. Or it's going to be like this progressive thing. And until we learn to forgive ourselves, and until we learn to like work with and be compassionate towards ourselves, like, be compassionate, try and find love for yourself, and try and remember like just one day at a time. And that's how we get through everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I don't think I have any more points. How are you feeling? You feeling pretty complete?
Your name, the law. Yeah. So it says,
your name.
Interesting. It says, I wrote, talk about soul contracts revocation. Oh yeah, that lady at that website I talked about, Awaken Aligned, she says, the law of one says that we have autonomy as sovereign beings on earth. That we are awakening to our own autonomy. Yeah, I think that we have the internet to thank for that. That's all I got.
But again, we all decided to come here during this experience of time when we would be reawakening because of things like the internet and because of these other things. So there's a soul crack. There's some soul crack there. Soul contract.
Well, we're also not really that concerned with having to survive. Like, there's this saying, I've been thinking about this so much lately, watching like historical fiction and thinking about our ancestors and thinking about the shoulders that we are sitting upon for us to be able to be here. And they say that good times make weak men and hard times make strong men. You know, and it's like, well, to an extent, there's a very real, like, a lot of us don't have survival instincts, but we know what our fucking soul number is. So, you know, that's like a different conversation.
Because we live way up here in the fucking mountains, it was offered in school as a science class to learn how to survive in nature. Do you remember that?
No.
Oh yeah, I took outdoor science, and our final is we had to hike up into the forest with snowshoes on. It was winter, and we had to build a shelter that was dry and warm. It had to reach a certain temperature inside the shelter, and you had to build a fire on snow with less than one book of matches.
Who told that shit?
Mr. Pintler.
Oh, interesting.
And it was some fucking intense shit, and
For him.
I am so thankful. I was like in 8th grade or something, and I'm so happy I took that class to this day, because I can build a motherfucker fucking fire on some snow. Like, you don't not learn that shit once it's like forced upon you in that way. But I think you're really like, I think you're really dead on, because a lot of that is like, we don't know how to farm the way we used to. We don't know how to do these things the way we used to. We don't even know how to trade and barter like we used to.
Well,
To get
that's how Atlantis fell. Like, dude, all this stuff that Graham Hancock's talking about is saying that they think that after the cataclysmic of the Younger Dryas, so 12,800 years ago, that there was a fucking, they say that's what Venus is. Venus is a bit of an asteroid of a bigger planet that broke off, and that we pass through the torrid meteor shower twice a year, and that's the rest of that same planet that broke off, hit our planet. We had all of these hunter-gatherers that and bits and pieces of higher advanced civilizations like our own that were driven underground. So you have people like the Hopi, like the Zuni, like all these other Native American tribes that have their creation story begin as the humans from the middle of the earth came out from the inside of the earth, and that they were the survivors of the civilization that came before, and that a lot of people perished like we would perish if we were to be hit by, dude, we're putting all of our money into war as opposed to putting our money into like knowing that if we saw an asteroid away, it was going to hit our planet, we would have 10 fucking minutes. 10 minutes, and we're not preparing for that. So anyway, on that cataclysmic note, learn to grow food, guys.
Stay 6 feet apart, but hug them. Like, send them love.
Oh, God. I've got so many cords on my desk right now. All this stuff coming out of my computer. I'm like, you little octopus.
You little octopus. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate you. This was a fun episode. I'm all about talking about this more. I feel like I could talk forever. This was interesting. Contract. So lay them on the questions if you have any, guys. You can follow us on Instagram at Perceptionist Anonymous. You can like us on Facebook, Perceptionist Anonymous. You can email us, perceptionistanonymous@gmail.com. And we really appreciate you guys tuning in and taking your hour with us today. We appreciate it quite a bit. Again, tell all your friends that you listen to us. Share us with them. We will have stickers soon. We will have stickers soon.
We're working on a website, so we got that. You guys got that to look forward to. If anyone wants to help us with our website, call me.
Email the Perceptionist Anonymous. I'm not giving out your phone number on here. That's how stalkers happen.
I'll tell you about that after.
Okay. Anyway, Perceptionists, we appreciate you. And as always, remember.
Mwah.